Jonathan Denga, Dora Kohotsi, Nicholas Kohotsi, Jackie Masiba, Lawrence Okawani, Sincere Mpima, Esther Etsuka, Luveni, Anay Gijspitzer, Dries van Kolla, Dion Firstenberg, Dr. Jan Kriek, Prof. Piet du Plessis, from the media, to Priya de Villiers from Marula, Andries Gous from Veerplaas, and Jasper Raats from Landbou Veerplaas. Previous directors, Corey Erasmus, Dr. Gerard Draai, Eladine Daly, Jacques Milan, Karel Landman. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Wildlife Ranching South Africa AGM and Safari Festival. If I could call on my fellow director, Shaw, to come and open with some prayer for us.
It has been said that it's very easy to be a believer if you're a farmer. First you find yourself on your knees praying for rain, and then when the rain comes, you're back on your knees saying thank you to your Creator. I thought this morning the words of Genesis chapter 1 and verse 29 is really a good place to start here together. It's about the story of creation. And it says here, and God went on to say, let us make man in our image. And then it carries on saying that, that man should have in subjection all the animals that roam on the earth. So there are two pertinent points that I want to bring out here, because a little bit later on, the scripture says, after that God saw that everything that he had made was very good. So there's nothing wrong with our Creator's handiwork. But there are two things that I want to talk about. First of all, that we have a God-given responsibility to take care of the animals that share this planet with us. But the second thing is that God created us in his image. Therefore, we should actually display the godlike qualities in looking after the animals that he has given to us. And what a privilege it is to be able to work with God's creation and to really take good care of it. So I would like just to leave this thought with all of us, that we not only have a God-given responsibility, but we also have a direct influence on the image of our innocence. Everything that we do impacts either in a good way or a bad way in the image that we are in. So shall we bow our heads together in respect to our Creator? Our Heavenly Father, we want to come together as a group of people this morning to express to you the gratitude that we have. Firstly, for the responsibility that you gave us to look after your creation. And secondly, for the way in which you bless us. The way that this year we've had a good year with the rains, and we can see it in our herds. We really want to express our deepest gratitude. We also want to please ask you to give us the needed wisdom and the strength of character to always do right thing when dealing with our fellow wildlife breeders or the public at large. And for us to always realize that we can either bring praise to your holy name or we can defame it. So please give us that wisdom and that strength to always do what is right. Once again, we thank you for everything, and we do so through our King Christ Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Sean. A couple of house rules for today. On the veranda, there's tea and coffee. Will be served all day. The ablutions are to my right, your left. The emphasis on today is to have fun. So don't let it all look glum. Perhaps we're just feeling a bit tired this time of the morning. But yes, we need to have fun today. There are a lot of stalls in the hall next door. Please support these gentlemen and the fellow ranchers that have come and brought the exhibits. There's a beer garden. There's a lot of food for sale. So please. Then we're going to have a special award ceremony later on for the 20-year plus membership. Now, although wildlife ranching was only established in 2006, making it 16 years, there were a lot of fragmented groups that came together that formed this. And it is through this and our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Theo, he's going to bring this together, as he was one of the persons that was instrumental in the formation thereof. We are then going to announce the finalists of the Wildlife Ranch of the year 2019. Eventually we can do that after the last 2 years pandemics. And then we've got another question and answer session where you can WhatsApp your questions to the following telephone number that's appearing on the screen now. And we will then address them as they are sent through to us. So take down that number and we will get to those questions once we receive them, and we'll handle that a bit later on. Without further ado, I will ask our current chairman of Wildlife Ranching, Mr. Gerard Heineken, to please step forward and do his welcoming address.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. What a privilege to be with you today. Also for all the members of the last 20 years. I know Wildlife Ranching, we're only 16 years young. But to all of you members already here for 30 years, 40 years, it's a privilege to work with you, and it's a privilege to do certain things with you today and where the vision might be for us going forward. I've got a nice part of Wildlife Ranching this morning. Richard will attend to what's going on in the organization. I just want to touch base on certain things. First of all, I want to say that we have shown after COVID that half a moon can still shine bright. And I think that is to say that even in difficult times, challenging times, we've managed to do that. Although difficult, we've shown that we can be sustainable, and we managed to be here today. Although for some of us still difficult, I think we're privileged to be in this situation today to get more farmers, more hunters, and more people to our businesses to support us, and so that we can definitely see that the value chain is working again for all of us. Before I start with a few pictures I want to show you, there's just one or two things I want to discuss with you, because there's certain questions you want to ask this morning. As a rancher, there's There's certain things you want to know. You want to know where we are, what happened the last few years, what are we busy with, and that will be addressed by Richard. But let's just recap quickly in 1 minute. Just after the announcement of COVID-19, we all know what happened. We almost, as an industry, dropped dead, because if there's no business, then you're in trouble. So, during 2020, the auction prices went down 59%. During 2021, it recovered again 59%. This year, the first 2 weeks, after the first 2 months of this year, recovered another 27%. And then March and April, the staggering 87%. So there's a lot of reasons for that, but I don't want to go into that. But what I want to say is this is where we are today, and we're glad to say that we're in this situation, and I believe the rest of the year will show us that we're in a very good position again, and we're not there where we were 2 years ago, in a very difficult spot. And it just shows us that, you know, sometimes you must just carry on with what you do and try to survive and get through, because after the bad times, there will be good times again. So from my side as well, I hope that the next year will treat you well and that it will go good with your business. I just want to start with that slide. And the 50 years is not necessary to pop the finger to a certain time. We can go back to 1977, we can go back a little bit further, when wildlife ranching 60 years ago, even longer, started. But the last 20 years or the last 30 years, we can say, we basically moved into a situation where we formed an organization, Wildlife Ranching, and we can be proud of that one. And it's also difficult to put that foundation down. And I want to thank today all the directors that's here, and I don't want to say the old people because you're not old, but the people of the past that make the difference to get us in a position where we are today, so that we can take wildlife ranching a bit further. It was at that stage also challenging times to get to the position where we were supposed to be, and thanks for all of them. You must greet them, you must talk to them afterwards. There's a lot of them. You will see them a little bit later. But we started with that tree. That's where we started as wildlife ranching. And before that, different organizations, as we will hear a bit later. If we look at this tree, I will go through this tree very quickly. This is who we are today. A little bit bigger, with a lot of things going, with a lot of things running, a value chain that we developed. We're still busy with that one, we're not finished yet, and very exciting times. I don't want to go into each and every one. If you can just look at that tree, you will see the green is maybe the developing that we're busy with, and the good things that's going on. You will see that the red ones is more the challenging things. That's a bit difficult. We still struggle with legislation, animal health, and anti-hunting brigade that we all know about, and I will touch base on that one quickly. So, not enough time, I just want to run through this quickly. You can see there's also places like Sudan, Chad, Mali, Senegal, that's making it very difficult for us because they haven't got good rules, regulations, or legislation on hunting. And usually if people point a finger on bad practices, it will be mostly to some of these places. We go on a little bit further, we will see we've got the 30-30 principle. I will talk to you about that one just now. And we all know that one, the production, breeding side, and busy with animal saving species, enhancing species. The next one quickly, animal product schemes, meat scheme that we're busy with. Just the next one to show you what we're busy with. The international IUCN site is we're quite involved in that because we can't stand on the sideline anymore. And that will become more and more relevant going forward. A national, as we know, the different departments. Then if we look at the next one, the Sustainable Use Coalition, I just want to tell, I know most of you know about this, I just want to tell you it's a privilege to work with the hunting organizations and all of us that think the same on sustainable utilization moving forward. So SUCO, we formed SUCO last year as all these organizations, and we represent now a membership of 75,000. And it was long overdue that we got to that stage where we can say, guys, we need to work together. We can't stand alone, hunters on this side, that hunter on that side of the organization, and wildlife ranching on the other side. We need to work together. We can't afford not to work together because we know the threat out there. So we're very glad to be part of that, of SUCO. And then, if we look at the transformation, we're busy with that. Richard will show you a lot of those things. That is also a good one. And then we formed the foundation, conservation piece, the online system, wildlife and dream hotels and the resort, that you will also see a bit later. We managed to develop the tax system. Very excited about that one. And then the challenges again. The high-level panel, we know what happened last year. It's still a big challenge. We will mention that going forward. There's still legislation, the buffalo issue, it's still going on. And then the big problem, we're not recognized as an agricultural commodity. And with that, there's a lot of problems, tax problems. We can't get benefits from government, as we all know, and it's a huge, huge problem to us. And then the last one, food and mouth diseases. We know all the diseases and what's going on. It's a real challenge also to the wildlife industry. That's basically who we are. And then I want to get quickly to the 2030, that you must all just put in the back of your head. Everything the whole world at the moment is working towards the 2030 and 2050 principles. That is basically to say that the European Union wants to eradicate poverty, hunger, and they're also doing certification schemes. So if you look at all those 17 principles that you can see there, we fit in at principle 15. At principle 15. And then the principle 15 is basically what's going on, everything that's going on terrestrial or on land. And that is a space where we work in. So that is got everything to do with carbon emissions, certification schemes. And it's not only for wildlife ranching, it's also for most of the other organizations the same. Not only in the wildlife industry, also in other commodities in the world and national. So we work in that space. So yes, do we agree with that? Will we be able to eradicate poverty? Will we be able to move towards 30% protected areas in 2030? I don't think it's possible, not for Africa. Not for us. But it's still a space we must clarify and quantify who we are to put us in a position where we can be in the next 10 years, where we're supposed to be. We can ask questions about that one if you want to. Quickly about this one, we all know what's going on. There's some different views on scientists on both sides. I believe that they are correct. And we've got a huge problem at the moment with this. You will sit with scientists and they will tell you 100% that you're 100% wrong. And then you will sit with scientists on the other side, and they will tell you 100% that you're correct. And that's a difficult one. One person came from, I will not mention names, came to me on the farm, and he showed the person is a professor with a peer-reviewed document on Orabis. And when the professor saw the Orabis, she said, "My goodness, they're beautiful." I said, "Yes, so, but you've done a peer-reviewed document on Orabis." So she said, "But I've never seen them." So that's a huge problem. So you ask wildlife ranching to present peer-reviewed documents, we do that, and then is it acceptable? What must we accept as good, and what is good for the industry? So that's a real threat, I would say, at this moment, in the space that we work with. Don't want to carry on too long about that one. In 1977, if I could side just a little bit on the sideline, 1977, two countries made decisions. The one, Kenya, and you all know what happened there. They started off to say that they don't want to do hunting anymore. And they've lost 85% of the animals since then. South Africa, on the other hand, decided that we'll utilize and we will make use of the product that we've got. We will sell the animals, we will work with the animals, we will utilize the animals. And in South Africa, we just went the other way, and we know where we are today. I don't need to say anything on that. I think the growth since then in South Africa is around about 1,300%. So what do we need? We need trade. We don't need aid. We must trade in the products that we've got. And that is the problem at the moment, that we've got the science telling us that certain things we don't need to trade in. And unfortunately, the reality is on our side. Unfortunately, not on that side. Why? Because you can see in certain areas that it is not longer feasible not to do management in certain protected areas and also private areas. We need to manage what we've got. There will be 1 billion more people in the next 25 to 30 years in Africa. It's not going to change. The wild open spaces that IUCN and scientists referring to, there's no wild anymore in that sense. And we need to understand that one, and we need to accept it, because the reality is showing us what's going on if we look at protected areas. Tsavo, just to mention that quickly, we know Tsavo East and Tsavo West in Kenya. We saw the destruction there. We can see 7,000 elephants died there, 15,000 black rhinos died there, because the management program and the science behind that basically is just wrong. And we must learn lessons out of that. Otherwise, we will see the same destruction in South Africa. And I'm afraid we had a crossroad with that one. I'm almost finished. This is I would say, 40% of the industry that you can see there. At the bottom you can see it's the wildlife ranches. We like the soccer field, we like the rugby field, and all the players play on this rugby field. If you take wildlife ranching away, then there will be no field anymore to play, and what will happen? That is what the end will be of that one. And that we can see everywhere in Africa. So this is the spot that we fight for every day, national and international. It's two things that you are in total control of in your life, and that is your attitude this is what I want to ask you today. If you ask me what can I do, I would like to say, you must help us to fight for this spot, so that we can keep this spot, so that we can enhance species, so that we can do what we love every day for the next 50 years. Because it's getting more and more difficult to do that. We need more voices. We need you to stand up. We need you to attend meetings. We need you to renew and to reboot with wildlife ranching like we've done 16 years ago. We're in a new phase where we need you so that we can do this and so that we can take this organization forward. There's just a message of us. The threat is real. Without hunting in Africa, we will destroy conservation, and we need to do much more to educate and to inform the public on misinformation and the misperception of wildlife ranching. We've got a huge responsibility to do that, to help us to be what we are and to grow. The positive, if I look more and more that I can see, I've heard on Wednesday, Zimbabwe said they don't want to be part of CITES anymore. Now what is the reason for that? They've got 136 tons of ivory and rhino horns, and they want to sell it and they can't sell it. So they said, well, it's worth $600 million and we want to sell it. And more you can see voices coming, going up, especially in the southern part of South Africa, because why? There's 183 countries making decisions on behalf of 9 countries with rhinos and elephants. And that is a big problem. So we need a voice to say, guys, if you don't listen, the destruction will keep on happening. And that is the challenge that's in front of us. But also Sufisho, Skinyana, new voices in the media in South Africa, Ahmed can mention a lot, going up and saying, look at us, look at Africa, listen to us. Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, you can just name it. And also Kenya that visited us recently, the Minister of Environmental Affairs, been to farm with us, and they also looking, there's 5 countries in Africa looking at the wildlife ranching model of South Africa at the moment. The last thing, and I will finish with this, is a golden opportunity for us. And who is the us? The us is to understand that it's the different departments in South Africa. It is the communities this morning that's in the hall here, in Esther, communities here. Present some of them. It is you as wildlife ranchers. All of us must use this golden opportunity to realize that wildlife ranching, that we are an agro-sustainable biodiversity wildlife economy. This is who we are. We make money out of the product, to save the product and to enhance the species. And we're doing it, I would say, damn well. So, congratulations to you on doing that so well. And we're so proud to say that and to announce that to the world, to say, sit up straight, look at what we manage in South Africa, and we're doing a good job. We've got this golden opportunity to make a decision what is important on behalf of all the people in South Africa. We must sell the product that we've got. We must hunt our animals. We must be able to utilize and use the animals that we've got. That is who we are. We will not stop doing that. And we will work to enlarge the businesses that we've got and to do biodiversity and habitat that we will save in South Africa. That is the main thing. Just by the way, I will end with this. South Africa, the private sector, I looked at the figure of 20 million actors and I thought, long time ago, maybe we exaggerate a little bit. Maybe it's 10 million actors, maybe it's 12 million actors. Theo is here, John Firstenberg. We sat down and we looked at studies and everything, and then we realized before the big, let's say, boom in wildlife ranches, there were already 17 million actors. So the 20 million actors, if you look at the size of the 20 million actors, we compare with 1.5 times the size of England. 1.5 times the size of England. So get that in your head and realize that. The other day I asked a woman, if you've got a farm of 1,000 acres, how big is that? If you must put a Loftus Versveld or Orlando Pirates size on that property, how many Loftus Versveld will you put on a property of 1,000 acres? And the woman said to me, no, Loftus is quite big, I would say 5. I said, no, it might be a little bit bigger. So she said, no, I think it's 10. So I said, okay. Well, 1,000 acres, there will be 1,000 Loftus Versveld. 1,000. 20 million acres, there will be 20 million Loftus Versveld. Realize what we've got, realize that we protect nature, realize that we protect biodiversity and habitat, and without managing this properly, we know what will happen there. Thank you so much for attending this today. I'm looking forward to the rest of the meeting. Feel free to ask questions. If you're over 50 and it's a challenge to do that SMS on your phone or that message, put up your hand and ask a question. We will take that question and we will answer as good as we can. I just want to end up to say thanks a lot for everyone, for the personnel, and also for the directors that helped us to get to this stage where we are. We're really proud of you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerhard. To reiterate what Gerhard was saying, we need your continued commitment to change the misconceptions in the wildlife industry. Our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Theo Jager, who's going to address us on the history and information of WRSA. A bit of background on Dr. Jager. He was elected the first president of the World Farmers Organization on the 14th of June 2017. Dr. Jager is the first South African chair of the organization and the second African after Dr. Evelyn Kuleka from Zambia. He represented WRSA at the South African Confederation of Agricultural Unions for the past 8 years and has been president since 2013. He was also president of the Pan-African Farmers Organization and until recently. Dr. Jager is the founder of Agri All Africa, a company which assists small farmers in Africa in transition to commercial farming. He was also voted South African Agriculturist of the Year in 2016 by the Agricultural Writers of SA. He holds his doctorate in philosophy from the University of Pretoria, where he focused his research on authentic African philosophy. He has farmed since 1997 in the South African Lowveld region with timber and subtropical fruits. He is Deputy President of WRSA and responsible for land reform, transformation, farmer development, African liaison. He is also the President of SACAO and President of PAFO starting December 2014, member of Artisa since April 2015, and Chairman of the Non-State Actors Coalition since March 2015. He formerly served as the President of Agri-Limpopo, Executive Member of Agri-Letaba, Chairman of the Trigardsdal Farm Association and farmed in the Tzaneen district since 1997. Dr. Jager is the current serving President of the South African Agri-Initiative Society. Okay, please welcome Dr. Jager to the stage.
Thank you very much. What a wonderful privilege to be with the game ranchers of South Africa again today. I have an office in Rome, the World Farmers Organization, which is only a few blocks away from the Food and Agricultural Organization of the UN, and IFAD, the International Fund for Agricultural Development. And even if I live to be 200 years old, I will not forget the first day I stepped into an office of IFAD. On the top floor, there was one of the administrators, senior officer in IFAD, who was in an office where the files covered the floor. And as I stepped into this office, he was sitting on a dilapidated bench working through some of these files. And immediately I noticed on the one wall, there was a picture, a massive picture from the floor to the ceiling of 5th Street Avenue, New York, marked 1900. And the whole street were full of horses and carriages. And I asked him, what is this about? He said it's all about this picture on the other side, also covering the whole wall, from the floor to the ceiling. 5th Avenue, New York, 1912. And the whole street was full of cars. There was only one horse between them. And he said to me, just look at these two pictures. Look at the horse owners on this 1900 photograph. They did nothing wrong. They believed that they just need to breed bigger and stronger horses because mankind will always need transport. Their sin was they did not see this picture coming. And in a period of little more than a decade, they became totally irrelevant to the economy of New York. Now, when we talk today about the history of WRSA, I actually want to talk to you about this one Model T Ford that appeared between the horses already in 1900. It does not matter on which level you organize farmers, local, provincial, national, continental, global. The core function of any farmer's structure is advocacy. The main job of a farmers' organization is to influence policies. That's what we are there for. Of course, there are many other things we do too, but this is core function. If you operate on the local level, you try to influence policies at the municipal level. The provincial structure must try to influence provincial policies. Same on national level, up to international level. But to influence policies, you need to have policies. And you can only have policies if you have consensus amongst your members. Developing policies amongst farmers is damn hard work. It often takes years. There are certain issues on which we might never have policies because farmers will simply not agree on their interests, their aspirations, the threats they perceive. To develop policies, you need to get inputs from anybody, from everybody. And this is why there came a time, a mere 2 decades ago, when in this industry, the game ranching industry, wildlife farmers started to talk about the future of the industry. It was a time when there were much less international and even national pressure on the hunting industry, which is a very important partner of the wildlife ranchers. much less. It was a time in which even the national policies and the legislation around this industry was really still in its baby shoes. But wildlife ranchers realized that it does not matter that much how valid your opinion is as an individual, how logic your argument is. What really matters is the number of people you represent in the industry. It becomes a weight game. What is the influence you sway amongst the practitioners in the industry? It's about being a voice. And even if you forget everything I say today, remember this part. It's about being the voice of the industry. If you're the voice of the industry, you need a place around the table. You need to be allowed to speak where policymakers meet. If you do not have a place around the table, you might be on the menu. It is as simple as that. Today, WRSA can claim to be the biggest player on this field in the world. Of course, you don't represent all wildlife ranchers, all game farmers. You will never represent all game farmers. But no one represents more game farmers than you do. Not in South Africa, not elsewhere in Africa, and at this stage, not in the world. You can be proud of the fact that you represent the most competitive industry in agriculture today. There is no wildlife ranching structure in the world which is more competitive than you are, even though you are a relatively young structure. And I want to attribute this to two factors. First of all, because there was a day around 16 years ago, if I remember well, and I recognize many of the faces here who were there too. It was around 2005, when all these fractured structures convened on a farm not that far from here, to say, shouldn't we stand under one umbrella? Shouldn't we look at the differences between the structures, differences in approach, differences in constituency, differences in place of origin? Shouldn't we try to consolidate what we have as assets in terms of members and policies? Shouldn't we put that in one basket and try to approach the policymakers a little stronger? I remember there was the Northern Game Breeders Association, Noordelike Wildboerevereniging, and there were a number of others too. And the reason why we had it here in Limpopo was because there were kind of more wildlife in private ownership here than elsewhere in the country. And at that meeting, issues were identified on which we should develop policy. I remember some of the issues which were tabled that day has not been sorted out even until today. And it might take another decade or two to get there. But at least the structure was formed. WRSA, Wildt South Africa, and it was possible to engage with the policymakers. Now, engaging with policymakers, that effort is quite a fine art. Influencing policies means, first and foremost, building trust. You don't force policymakers into policies in the beginning of the process. This happens a little later on. You only force via procedures in court. But before you get there, you need to try to find the soft ear and to persuade and to introduce policymakers to the reality on grassroots level. And in your game, unfortunately, not that many people in Parliament understand wildlife ranching. Before you can persuade them to adopt certain policies, you must make them understand what the nuts and the bolts of this industry is all about. And this is not only about the national stuff. It starts at local level. It starts at issues such as the fact that you pay more local taxes than other farmers do, because you are being perceived as the playing field of rich, middle-aged white men. And you will not change that until you get a soft ear with policymakers. And it's not going to happen overnight. You need to set up your arguments and have enough weight behind them to get them to change it. Up to provincial issues. And you have many of those because of the fact that certain game species are indigenous to certain provinces in our country, and so many policies are actually dwindled down to provincial level. We find it inside our network for family farmers that when we run into a brick wall on a national level, it is often much easier to engage on a provincial level. And once you hook it through on that level, it becomes easier again to take it back to the national level. But then, of course, there are many issues which we need to deal on a regional level, and SADC, because we really have strong game ranching structures also in Namibia and Botswana, and more lately in Zambia. And on the one hand, it's competition. We will always be in competition with each other in the SADC region. But on the other hand, it strengthens our advocacy efforts towards SADC, towards the African Union, and of course, towards the global policy-making processes in the United Nations, the European Union, and elsewhere, which becomes more and more important. Those of you who have mixed farms, those of you for whom the wildlife industry is only a portion of your land-based business, you will know that the world became a very small place for farmers, and every one of us is every day in competition with the best other farmers in the world. And food and fiber and all our products, they cross borders as if they are not in existence. And all of us must adhere to stricter and stricter standards and rules if you want to play in the global game. And if there are surpluses of something in Brazil or in New Zealand, it is sure to land on our shores too. And very often, we cannot produce, for example, chicken at the price in which they can sell it in the shelves of our shops. But that is not the only issue around global trade and the impact of globalization in agriculture. The biggest impact is around moral issues, climate, biodiversity and nature, and health. And it is so important that we touch base on the more recent history of this organization. I really want to use this opportunity to salute the leadership of WRSA for the way they have engaged in these issues lately. The way they understood well in time, tirelessly, that the most important person in the service of a farmers' organization these days is a communications officer. Because gone are the days when farming meant producing from the soils, the water, the sunshine, your access to mechanization, and just putting a product on the table or in the shelf in shops. Because the world, the value chains, the consumers got involved in the production process in a way we did not see coming. This was part of the Model T Ford amongst the horses. You see, the most important person in any farmer's life, apart from his family, is the consumer who needs to buy his stuff. Is that woman who stands in front of a shelf in the shop and decide what she will buy to feed her family tonight. That's why we talk of value chains in agriculture. It's because you cannot push a chain, you can only pull it. And there's only one pulling force, and that's the market. We can only produce what the market would buy from us. And in your case, that market is another game breeder, another game for a wildlife farmer, is a hunter or an outfitter, or is a tourist. And lately, the influence on that market, on that buyer of the products, is a well-organized campaign who operates across the globe and who is well-funded. And today we run in all sorts of trouble with issues which we did not see coming. You cannot believe how strong the anti-hunting lobby became globally. And it's not only against hunting, it always starts with trophy hunting, but we know if trophy hunting goes, it will be a matter of months or a year or two, and the rest of the hunting industry will also go down the drain. There are so many campaigns against cages and chains, against factory farming, against the dairy industry, for abusing the female body. Because the consumer wants to know, how was this produced? They want to scan a QR code with the smartphone and see what kind of accommodation did this pig have before he was slaughtered. What was sprayed on this crop? What kind of fertilizer was put in the soil around here? And they want to influence the upstream chain through their power of buying. About 4 years ago, I attended a meeting in Brussels of the European Union, and I was very much surprised to see on the agenda there was a resolution to abandon or to ban trophy hunting. And over tea time, I engaged with a number of EU parliamentarians and asked them what this is all about. They explained to me that just as slavery was abandoned in a time of about 25 years, between 1820 and 1845, after millennia of having slavery, the whole world agreed in that 25 years that the level of civilization got to the point where we need to abandon it, to abolish it. He said, and today it's a no-go. The whole world will act against you if you have slavery. He said, they said, today we got to a new level of civilization where we should rethink the relationship between man and animal. One of the first things we should rethink is trophy hunting. Why kill an animal just because it's got beautiful horns? And this campaign is being managed from London, and it is very, very well funded. But on the back of it are all these other campaigns against animal-based proteins and livestock farming. The big issue last year at the Food System Summit of the United Nations was about animal-based proteins. They want to replace it with plant-based proteins to restructure this relationship between man and animal. And you are in the front trenches of this battle. Part of this was for health reasons. But I think that after the reports of the Scientific Committee of the Food System Summit last year, the health issue has been wiped from the table. That report says there's nothing unhealthy about animal-based proteins. Too much of it can be unhealthy. But you know, if you drink too much water, it can also be unhealthy. The heavier argument is around footprint on nature, biodiversity and climate. And we are risking that, especially in the UNFCCC and the COP processes. Because also that argument is not that valid. When we work with animal-based greenhouse gas emissions, mostly methane from the ruminants, we are talking about a very short cycle. The methane breaks down between 10 and 12 years, mostly into CO2, which comes down, which is absorbed by plants and sequestrated through their roots. It puts them back where it belongs, under the ground. You cannot compare that to the use of fossil fuels, ancient sources of carbon, as being used in the transport or energy sectors from coal and oil. And in the World Farmers Organization, we are fighting that battle every day, explaining to global policymakers that we are not your biggest problem as farmers, we are your only solution. Only agriculture can work on the other side of the balance sheet, where we do not only focus on emissions, but we do the sequestration of carbon too. The biggest issue is the moral issue. They don't want us to kill animals. The world doesn't want us to kill animals. And the reason for that is, we said in the very first generation, or in the first time in the history of mankind, with more people in our generation living in cities than living in rural areas, and the majority of people who no longer have uncle or a grandpa or an aunt on a farm. And their experience of food stops at the shelf of the shop, and they know nothing about the world behind those shelves. And when they think of animals, they think of Walt Disney cartoons, animals with big eyes and long eyelashes, who speaks in human tongues. So Walt Disney is partly to blame. That's why it is so important that we communicate what we farm and how we farm, and how we get our products onto the market in a new way. We must get onto the front foot when battling these. Our strategies must simply be smarter. And none of you, no matter how big you are, none of you can do it on your own. It takes an industry body to take on that challenge. And the more farmers you represent in this industry, the better you are equipped to do just that. Some 4 years ago, I had a meeting with Bill Gates in his offices in Seattle. I did not really understand why he invited me, and I still do not understand everything he told me that day. I'm on the wrong side of 55. But he basically said to me, data is the new gold in agriculture. Everything will be about data in the future. And you as farmers should not run in the gold rush to mine the data. You must open the shops, selling the spades for those who want to dig for the data. Because no one, not even himself in Microsoft, has the capacity to go from farm gate to collect the data. He said, but you farmers' organizations, you can be one big gate through which everybody has to go to get to the data. Never, never surrender the ownership of your own data, he said. It was only a few months later it started to make sense when I realized that data is all about precision farming. Data is the precision part of precision farming. Precision farming is about data-driven farming. And that is not only applicable on farmers with big machines and sophisticated implements. It is even more applicable in livestock and game farming. Which is why it is so important that you embark on this journey of gathering the data, harvesting the data as another product from game farms, and then sifting through it, processing it, packaging it, and selling it to the rest of the value chain. Data is an extremely powerful tool in advocacy. The one who has the data on the table controls the industry, because what you cannot measure, you cannot manage. And who should do it if you don't as industry? That is what will take this industry from horses and carriages to vehicles, to cars. This is the big change that's in the air. And then there's a last word. I'm so grateful for the support I got from this industry in my position as president of the World Farmers Organization. The many meetings I have with the leadership of the organization, for you attending and representing South African farmers on global forums. But there's one thing I want to leave in your midst and ask your support for. When you talk about climate change amongst farmers, American farmers hear party politics, Al Gore. When you talk in Southeast Asia, Latin America, or Africa about climate change and climate smart agriculture, farmers say to you, even if I do everything right and my neighbor does nothing, it will boil down to nothing because the climate covers us all. So I will do it when everybody else do it. It's not that easy to convince farmers that they can make a contribution towards climate or nature. But you are in an industry where you cover biodiversity in its fullest extent. Only game ranches has everything, from elephants to the microorganisms in the soils. And more than 90% of what the farmer can do about biodiversity and climate and nature is done in the soils. It's about how we work our soils. It's about what we spray on it. It's about how we fertilize it. And your soils go nowhere. What you invest in your soils, you will have the direct benefit of it. So we are trying to launch a global initiative around soil health, to move away from the politicization of the other issues such as climate change and biodiversity. This campaign is all about the farmer-to-farmer agreement, a pact, a pledge. We want to see how many farmers across the globe we can get to sign a simple pledge. The pledge will be that given the fact that I am the custodian of a small piece of this planet for a very short moment in the life of this farm. It's been here millions of years before me, and it will be here long after me. But in this time in which I'm the custodian of it, I pledge to leave it in a better condition to the next generation than what I found it. And if only 10% of the world's farmers can do that, we can really hit a dent in our challenges for biodiversity, climate, and nature. And it's important that you, who is the primary custodians of the whole chain on biodiversity, that you remain on the cutting edge of it. My request to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jager. Can I ask Mr. WRSA to come up to the stage, please? Uri was our first president of the WRSA to do the presentation of honorary membership to Dr. Jager this morning.
Thank you so much.
Another hand there. As Dr. Jager said, we never must stop telling our story. Today would not be possible without our sponsors and our supporters. Our main sponsors today, Crown National, Mr. George Theo, are you present? Not. And then Health Square Agility, represented by Dr. Jager, a renowned clinical pharmacologist. Is he around? Dr. Steinman just coming forward, he starts address us for a couple of minutes.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. And the previous speaker already alluded to my age when he said, please put your hand up, don't use your phone because you'll mess it up. So yes, sir, if I don't use my phone because I will mess it up. I remember the times when I told my children, do not touch the TV. It's now reversed completely. They say don't even touch the remote control. Call us. Don't phone us and we'll come and readjust it because you'll mess it up for life. Anyway, so that is briefly my background. So I'm a clinician by trade, so I don't know your industry at all. However, I'm one of those lucky ones that have family from sheep farming to wildlife ranging. So I know the wildest part of your industry, and that's your personnel and your families. And how do we care for them? Because it's usually there where it starts, where the worry starts. It's their health, it's
it's the finances, it's the insecurities of what, because I don't know. And now, agility has been part of administering medical schemes, insurance products within the health industry, specifically focusing on how do you integrate all of this to make sense. I mean, many of you will have medical scheme cover, and most of you till today don't know how it works. Does this now come from my savings account, or is this part of my co-pay cover, or is this now covered, or is this a prescribed minimum benefit, or is it something else? And eventually, you just pay because you don't know, because most probably you, like me, you have difficulty with those QR codes that you need to scan to find out more. Okay, so we pride ourselves in covering the continuum of care. When we talk about family, or we talk about your personnel, the people that work for you, and we integrate it to make sure that even the claiming process is taken care of properly. So I suppose now they've put a phone here, so let me see if I press the button whether something changes. Okay, so it's that one. Nothing changes, then it must be this one. Yeah, there we go. I mean, it's magic, isn't it? Yeah, fantastic. So this is the continuum of care. Continuum of care starts with well-being, with not being sick, by maintaining health. And how do you maintain health? Maintenance of health, for people who say, don't eat this, do this, run as much as you can, and do this, and all the other miserable things. Okay? But it's not, it doesn't come naturally. So you have to put that into programs to stimulate people and make them buy into processes where they care for themselves. So therefore you have rewards programs. So all of that is integrated, and you have received this pamphlet within your bags. So on this pamphlet, we reiterate what I'm saying today. And on the back of the pamphlet, you can either phone or WhatsApp us to make sure you get the information and additional information. So if you look at an example, let's take your personnel. Are they covered? If they, for medical emergencies, are you covered for medical emergencies? Are the people that visit your branch, if there's something that happens, would they be airlifted? And therefore we have products for all of that. So even if it starts with your staff care product, which gives access to a telemedicine line, which gives access to a general practitioner, which gives access to dental or mental health or trauma line, so where people can phone and be debriefed quickly and make sure that they get professional help accordingly. All of that is in place, from the lowest salaried employee right through to the farmer who wants medical scheme cover for himself, his family, or his employees, and the structure of how you subsidize this. We also then saw that it doesn't actually just stop there. How do you integrate this and give you proper life and disability cover? And if you do it as a group, it comes up so much cheaper, because your insurance premium is not like you taking out a premium just on your own life. You now belong to a group, and because the average age of the group then brings that particular premium down. And that also links into this entire continuum and the circle that you see in the back there. So it's all interlinked, it's all integrated. And then you also find out that, or you've already experienced that, you go for a procedure in a hospital, some of it's not covered, because that's the way that the medical scheme industry is structured and regulated. So that not covered part either needs to come uncomfortably out of your pocket, or you can insure for that. And what we have done is we integrated that so that when you put in a claim, it already pays out that part and the medical scheme part as a single payout to you and or the provider, making sure that you don't feel the pain in your pocket when you need it least. So the integration is key. We have then also, after a while, realized that some of those benefits can also be linked into your retirement funds, and especially also retirement processes put in place for your employees. So the entire employee well-being and the well-being journey is important. And you support that with a rewards program. To say it's a good thing, and now you're immediately going to look at me and say, but I don't have a Virgin Active on my farm. I know, you don't have a Virgin Active, but you've got your feet and you walk. So all we need to know is how far you walk and how often you walk to link into the same type of benefit and rewards program, because it's a good thing. So stimulating the right behavior is important. What is right behavior? Right behavior is also to go for those preventative tests. Some of the speakers says those over 55, I also have to put my hand on. Have you checked your prostate? Have you done this? Have you gone for a mammogram if you're female? Have you all of those? So we reward even that correct behavior, so that certain diseases that we know that are prone can actually be prevented by picking them up early and have appropriate interventions at the right time before they have developed much further. So well-being is not only rewarding the right behavior, but also rewarding for other behaviors. So you will see that the rewards program include education, would include playing certain sports, and so forth. The detail of this you can all find out either speaking to Raymond. Is here, back, he will put up his hand later, there, right in the back, or you can WhatsApp us on the back, which is on the back of this particular pamphlet. So, just press the button again, see if anything happens. There we go. So the integration of the different products are key. So therefore the continuum of care that I spoke about starts with your staff care model, where you pay a very low premium for staff to be covered, unlimited GPs, unlimited chronic medicines on a particular formulary, and obviously you can always top that up with your hospital insurance cover, because that is the problem. Where must my employee go if they need a procedure? Who's going to transport my employee or myself or my guest to the hospital if there's an incident or event? So the agri-trauma product is give that particular cover. So everything is integrated, making sure the customer care is central. And guess what? Customer care knows that you're a farmer and speaks your language. And so it's not a call center that's foreign to you, and that actually understands your background, your situation, your rural environment, and how that should be actually dealt with appropriately. So in a nutshell, this is what stick with you. So it's dedicated service delivery. It's service delivery focused within your language, whether it's Afrikaans, English, any one of those other languages in South Africa, that's dealt with, because the call center is multicultural and makes sure that they can deal with that. And you can see the integration helps further. So the more of the products you integrated with, the deeper the particular discount, especially on the insurance products, because now I know your risk. Previous speaker said data is king. Because I know the data, I know your claims behavior, I know your health behavior, I can therefore give you a much better premium, because I know the risk for the insurer is so much lower. So we've got providers in all regions, and that is often a problem. So I've mentioned the Virgin Active on your doorstep, but you have general practitioners in remote areas. We have pharmacies in remote areas. So we also have the ability that you can, as I said, phone for your trauma helpline. You can have a video conference with a psychologist or a psychiatrist. You can video conference your doctor 24/7, purely because it's available as part and parcel, for instance, of your staff care product. What does it help you with? 80% of your minor illnesses can be dealt with in that way. So, sometimes, if you have your own blood pressure reading apparatus at home, you can connect and send that data through on the telemedicine platform, and you can renew your script for your hypertension medicine, which can be delivered to your doorstep. Doesn't matter how remote it is. So all of that is integrated to make sure that it's much easier for you either to comply, adhere to the care, and do the right behavior. And because we know that, we can therefore reduce your premium. I'm going to stop here by saying integration and making sure the entire continuum of care, from your staff care model right to your medical scheme, supported by a rewards program, underpinned by simple insurance, life and disability, even into your retirement fund, is all in place for you and those that you employ. Thank you. If there's a burning question, you can QR code me with your hand. Otherwise, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Snowman. Please, guys, let's support our sponsors and our supporters. Excuse me. We're privileged today to introduce our current leadership of wildlife ranching. If all of them would come and get together after the proceedings today to take a photograph, I appreciate it. That goes as well for the chairman, provincial chairman and RIGs that will introduce a bit later on. Starting off with our financial administration and events, Mr. Charles Toy. Marketing and brand development, Kokomotso Mupai. Strategy implementation, Louis van der Waard. RIGs Chair and Northern RIGs Ambassador, Milan Davey. Game Product Research and Development, Nico Darren. Tourism and Southern RIGs Ambassador, Nkubela Mayatulu. Breeding, Animal Health and Biosecurity, Dr. Peter Oberon. Transformation and Land Reform, Peter Aarons Jr. Conservation Research and Hunting Liaison, Ruan Nau. Industry Liaison, Tebogo Pashua. Transformation and Land Reform, Dr. Kalani Lasoli. Myself, Colin Engelbrecht as Vice Chairman. Chairman Gerard Heineke. Our Chief Executive Officer, Richard York. And then the office staff, Ankie Strubel, Membership and Functions, General Finance and Admin, Ariette Mataba, PNC General Admin, Mariki Wenzel, retired at the end of April this year. The Communications Officer and WRSA Foundation, Margarethe Smith. The General Office Assistant, Mary Rangapoli. Our Contract Script Writer, Niket Carlson. And our Contract Projects Manager, Engelin Hirika. To discuss our finances this morning, I call on our Finance Director, Charles Toy, and Yanni Fenton, VNR Accountants, to please come.
It gives me great pleasure to stand here this evening to tell you that the finances of our association is looking a lot better than what it did a few years ago. And the current board was voted in. I think we reached an all-time low in terms of our finances. In fact, for the year 2020, it had been budgeted that the association would make a loss of around about 700,000. And in actual fact, that came true. We made a loss of about 650,000. So it was the first time ever in my business career that I came across an organization or a company that actually budgeted to make a loss. That to me I couldn't quite understand, because what you would understand is if you do have a budget, then it's going to come true. You certainly have to make it come true. So in our first year, in 2021, I'm glad to tell you that as a board we decided that we budgeted to make a profit of R1 million. And I'm pleased to inform you that in fact we did that, and in fact it exceeded it. We made a profit of 1.5 million. So from being a loss of 650,000 in the 1 year to a profit of 1.5 million plus minus, that's really something I think that the current board needs to. And of course, going forward, we will keep on, creating budgets that will stretch us to greater levels. So you will see that later on that we have in fact set a budget of about 1.5 million profit for this year, and it is a very conservative budget. I think it should have been, we should have stretched ourselves a little bit more. There is one thing that I always say to myself, and that is, guys, we are part of a multi-billion rand industry. A multi-billion rand. We have a product which is unique in the world. We need to switch that thinking in our minds. Because until such time as we switch it in our minds, it's not going to happen. It's like we've got gold in our hands and we don't realize that we have it. And I know that sometimes it's difficult because as farmers, maybe we do not have the skills, the financial skills to turn our product into profit. So I just want to say to the current board, well done guys. To the entire board, especially to Gerard and Colin and Richard for running a tight show, and for us to be able to present to you this morning a clean audit for the year that's gone by. I also want to thank all of those who took part in our national auction last year, giving back to the industry, the generosity that you displayed. And that is the key for us to work together. Without money, they say money is not everything, but without it, there's very little that you can do. So I'm looking forward to a very bright future for our organization. I think it is really poised now to really do some great things in the future. So well done guys, and maybe make profit after profit from here on in our association. I'd like to hand over to Jannie Venter, who's going to just give us a few of the highlights. I've asked him, please don't go through the whole audit. If you really want to do that, you can get a copy and study it at home, but it can become quite boring when you see how much money was spent on pencils and rubbers and things like that. So Jannie is going to give us just a highlight, an overview of where we were and where we are today and where we're going. Jannie, it's your audience.
Thank you, Saul. Good morning, everyone. Saul mentioned I'm coming in and bearing good news, hopefully. So, as mentioned, it's a clean audit. So the auditors were satisfied that the finances that I'll present to you is in order. We realized
Thank you, Yanni, and thank you, Charles, for your wisdom and guidance to be able to put such a stout set of results that we presented here today. Thank you. To give feedback on the directors and our vision for the future, I'm going to call on our CEO, Richard York, to come and address you. I'd like to add that this is his first real job that he's ever had in his life. So, before that he just irritated his dad around the farm, and I think it's going a lot better on the farm. Very good. To address us, Richard York.
Thank you for that, Colin. Appreciate it. Just a clarity point regarding the House of Casino. That is not included in the financials. That will be included in the financials for next year. So that is not part of our profit that we realized there. Is the house was sold this year, for those that were wondering. So yeah, as Colin rightly mentioned, it's my first time actually having a real job. And Dad, hopefully the farm also makes a profit this year. So let's see how that goes. But Joel, the main question we need to ask is, where are we going? Who are we as WRSA? Where are we going? What direction are we going in? And the whole reason I asked Dr. Theo Jager to be here today is because he was instrumental in the forming of WRSA many moons ago. And the first thing he said to me in my meeting that I had with him was, we need to create an innovative data capturing setup and design that can basically help our members show what they're doing. And that's what we've set up to do. So if we look at this one photo from the archives of Dr. Theo, I'm so glad you could be here. 2005, thanks for boarding. We're still going the same way. If you have a look at that picture, it says WRSA. And it's talking about what is our vision, where we're going as WRSA. So not much has changed. We're still on the same road. And we need to identify how we're going to get to that destination. So there's the saying that says, don't get stuck in your past, use it to fuel your future. Now all the knowledge that is in this room today is phenomenal. The amount of people that we see here today, the amount of experience, the amount of technical expertise is fantastic. And it's really a privilege to be here with you all, and we must use that fuel to fuel our future. I want to tell you guys about a brief discussion we had at a board meeting the other day. There was the discussion that maybe as a young, enthusiastic CEO that likes to do things new and different and sometimes doesn't see the consequences of my decision, we got told maybe we're moving a little bit too fast. And Louis van der Walt said something that I think is phenomenal. He said, there's one thing you can do. Rather get a speeding ticket before you get a parking ticket. So I'd just like to say, on this road that we're going on, we might experience a couple of bumps. Yes, we're going to drop the ball every now and then. But we're going to try and reach our destination for the benefit of everyone out there. That's what we want to do, and that's my promise to you as the WRSA CEO. So on that note, I'd like to express my sincere thanks to all the directors, because their wisdom and their guidance has definitely made a huge difference in our industry. And we've definitely had a good overview thanks to them. So who are we as WRSA? That's one of the first questions I had to ask myself when I took this role. Who are we? What are we? Where do we want to go to? And if you have a look at the map of South Africa, something that everyone seems to get wrong is they think we've taken wildlife from protected areas, where in actual fact it's the other way around. We've taken marginal agricultural land, and if you have a look at this map of South Africa, there's no space for wildlife there. It's grains, livestock, crop, forestry. There's nothing there for wildlife. The only block that's marked as none is Kruger. So when we ask ourselves, where do we fit on the map? We don't. And we've got to change that. That's one of our biggest goals. We've got to have the wildlife ranching industry recognized for the 20 million hectares that it contributes to, and put ourselves on the map. So who are we? We have a deep dive in where we sit. So we've got our breeding, that's obviously our core. We've got our hunting, that's the secondary. We've got our products. We've got our tourism. But most importantly, what we realized during this COVID pandemic is we've got mixed farming, which is a key component of what we are. Gerard often has a saying, he says, if I stand on one leg, you can push me over quite easily. And that's as simple as illustration. But if I stand on 5 legs, good luck to try and push me over. And that's where our diversity and our strength comes from in the industry. And if you even just have a look at the research that was done by the Sustainable Wildlife Economies Project, here you can see how strong mixed agriculture actually features in the successful game ranches of the Eastern Cape, which is a phenomenal tool going forward for us. So for us to compete as game ranchers, we need to outperform other economic land use options. That's our biggest key. We need to outperform those land use options, otherwise there will not be a home for wildlife. And that's what makes us the agri-sustainable biodiversity wildlife economy. That's who we are. And that's who we must punt ourselves as being, and that's the educational message we must give forward. So we need to tell our story to be able to tell your story. So our model works. And as we've mentioned, these people don't care. They don't care about our model because they care about the money. They care about the sensation. That's Mr. Gonzalez from Ban Animal Trade telling don't shoot the last elephant. Why? Because these bingos or big international NGOs are worth 3.5 billion rand. So what else has changed in our industry? COVID's shown us a couple of things. When we talk about the COVID pandemic, there's actually some positives that have come out of COVID. The first positive, people now understand trade bans. Before when you mentioned a trade ban to them, they had no clue what you were talking about. Now when you say, do you think banning rhino horn is going to save the species or stop the trade? What happened when we banned cigarettes and alcohol? Did it stop the trade? No, it just pushed it to the black market and it made it triple, 3 times the price. That's what happened. That's the key that's come out. The second most important thing is that the tourism industry has started to look up at wildlife ranching and look up at hunting and say, jeepers guys, you are the pioneers of the industry. You are the most diverse and the first people that will recover, that will have experience, that will have people coming back to you, whereas mass tourism generally takes a while. So those are some of the problems that we face. But if we look at COVID in general, it's the human population number that's our biggest pandemic. During COVID, during the last 6 months, we've actually grown with 50 million in the world population, despite going through a pandemic, despite having this deadly disease that's killed so many. So we're still growing in number. So WRSA and the way forward, what's our intended vision? Where do we want to go to? How do we want to get there? This is the most important key message. Without data, we have no future. Without data, we can't tell your story. Without information, without knowledge, we can't share what we are achieving. If we ask the simple question today, how many buffalo are there in South Africa? Can anyone answer it? How many impala? How many kudu? How many wildebeest? But yet we want legislation to be written in our favour because we are the industry, but we can't show those figures. It's key that we put things in place that allow us to do so. So to unlock our future, we need to look at opportunities. And firstly, there are many people here sitting here today. I'd like to say a massive thanks. Many people that supported our vision last year and gave faithfully to WRSA for our online auction, and then also purchased lots. And to say thanks, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in my slide, but we printed these books, which is one of a kind. It's a unique electronic tagging system with an individual QR tag that you can rip out of the book and allocate to trophies that are hunted, for specific hunters, and complete traceability. So I'd like to hand a couple of these books around. Please all take a tag that you've got one for reference. And then at the end of the AGM, we're going to do a lucky draw, and the lucky number that has the tag will win a hat from WRSA. So if we can please pass this book around. And if you want, it's a product called Tieback. You can write on it with a normal ballpoint pen. It's completely waterproof. And good luck trying to rip it. It doesn't tear unless you've got a lot of force. So in terms of our future, we first need to look at our responsibility. What is our biggest responsibility as WRSA? And our biggest responsibility is transformation. So we formed the Social Ethics and Transformation Committee. Andrew Pane, Barry York, Stephen Palos, there's a couple here today. I'd like to say thank you for the work that you're doing on that committee and the difference that you're making. We were at the People in Parks conference on the 1st of April. Esther, Lawrence, welcome. It's fantastic to have you here. There were commitments made by WRSA at that meeting. And I want to say here at our AGM that we know that our commitments are true. That we as industry will support communities. That we will provide the know-how, the mentorship, the experience, and will assist communities in developing their game launches and growing the wildlife economy. When we spoke at that very event, we spoke about 3 circles, and it's important that we understand these 3 circles. You've got government, you've got industry, and you've got communities. We cannot expect government to create jobs and to create business because they themselves get a salary every month. They do not understand how business works. So how can you expect them to put the business models together for communities to make a living? It's the expertise of the mentors of the game launchers on the ground that actually understand the day-to-day business that will make that difference. And it's important that we find unique ways of combining with incentives and initiatives going forward. Mabala Yarona, Andrew, Northwest, you guys are phenomenal. Let me tell you what, these guys have got their heads screwed on properly. They raised 23 million rand in the Northwest on the 4th of April. Fantastic initiative, well supported, and a unique samevatting van 'n klomp mense. It was a phenomenal day. It was a privilege for WRSA to be part of it. And Andrew, from our side again, to Mabala Yarona, you've got WRSA's complete cooperation, and we look forward to working with you. Even on the projects, in fact, working behind the scenes, bringing unique projects with us, talking about doing debushing, land restoration, then getting job equity with employment, people debushing that forest, and those wooded areas, then taking that and converting it into charcoal, doing the entire value chain of business. That's where we need to focus. Gavin Shaw from the Eastern Cape, it's a privilege to have you here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this wonderful Eastern Cape with us. I had the privilege of seeing the most beautiful place in the world where I saw a waterfall fall directly into the sea. We don't understand how beautiful our country is, and it's through visiting these places that we get to see it. This was in Kambati in the Eastern Cape. Limpopo, we went up to the Transfrontier National Park there. Letaba, this was in the Northwest. This is one of our spearhead projects that Prof has been running for many years and doing a fantastic job. It's now taken over by Ruan and Peter Arends Jr. for the Kamani Sun community. This was when we were there earlier last year, the last meeting. Ruan and Peter did a courtesy game count and did a full stock take of what was happening on the property. It was a privilege to be there and to experience it. Then there's something I'd like to challenge us all to achieve. We need to transform our hunting operations. This is on our own property. We had the privilege of hunting with these youngsters. Let me tell you, it was one of the best hunts I've ever done. We only shot 3 animals, but it was 3 shots and it was based on complete training. All of these young gentlemen want to get involved in the wildlife industry. These two in particular, when I told them that game farming is not as profitable as it is at the moment, their words to me were, it's not as profitable at the moment because you don't understand the tidal wave you've just created by allowing us in the door. Change the way you think, allow that tidal wave to take place. If we look at the initiatives that are going to be challenging us, the 15 initiatives and the recommendations of 2016, those are some of our challenges. Our foundation, we all know that we're not recognised as an agricultural sector. So that's why we formed the foundation, to help and support. And I'd like to thank Margareta Smith for all the work she does behind the scenes regarding that. And partnering up with the Acorn Foundation, the 10th of September, we're going to have quite a special event. So I'd like to remind you all about that. We've also gone and partnered with the right people. Wildt from the Google's Rugby Union, he's our director and our ambassador for the foundation. Conservation Kids, also another initiative that's really taken off. Now I'd like to challenge you all. We've had an event in Gauteng. I see 8 different other provinces. Invite us, find a school. Tell us where we must come and support. Let's educate people about what we do as wildlife ranchers. Dr. Theo touched on it. The reality is we're sitting with generations that have lived in cities for over 3 generations and are totally divorced from reality. They don't know where their food comes from. They don't know what wildlife is. They don't know what conservation is. So this was one of our first events in Gauteng. Fantastic achievement. Got us good recognition as WRSA. So in terms of our industry, we've looked at creating Wild In. Why do we create Wild In? It's because your labour starts and your Airbnbs don't talk to us. So we've gone and created our own initiative. And it's through that initiative of Hunting Wild In that I'm happy to mention that the Dreams Hotel, CISO, if you can stand up please. There we go at the back. Please guys, fantastic initiative. Opportunities to market directly to over 25,000 clients. These are initiatives that the directors, such as Nonkobela, have brought directly to our table. With Nonkobela in terms of tourism, she's also got us as a member of the Tourism Business Council. Makes a huge difference when we're talking about the value of wildlife ranching, when we're marketing what we do. So get involved, participate, share. This is a brief progress to date. I'm not going to go into it too much. You've touched on most of it. But please, CISA is here from Dreams. Go see it. If you're not registered yet, you're behind. And that's the reality. You're still sitting on that horse, and you haven't yet realized that there's a vehicle in front of you. And working with Dreams is that vehicle that will definitely promote your tourism side. Legal opinions, I'm going to spend a bit of time on this because this is often our burning questions. Where are we and what is WRSA doing legally-wise? In terms of the high-level panel, which then morphed into a draft policy position and then morphed into a white paper, I have it under good authority that that white paper has reached the end of the road. It's not going to stand up again. And the reason why it's not going to stand up again is because of our departments on the ground, our scientific authority on the ground that supports us. Guys, we get irate as game farmers and we tackle that industry and we go to Elias in we say, Elias, why is this not happening? Why is this not happening? And the truth of the matter is, or even at Gavin, why is this not happening? It's because of the bureaucracy, red tape that hinders them. I promise you, we've got willing people on the ground that want to help our industry. Don't take it out on them. Find solutions, and that's what we're focusing on. The hunting quota that's been stalled, we've had numerous meetings regarding this. We've actually even got advocate opinion from Yuri Vesins. And the advice given is simple. If we get involved with this court case as WRSA, we're going to look at stopping the quota of these species for at least the next 2 years, because it's going to be a prolonged court case. The strongest recommendation they say we can make is to say, listen chaps, Minister, accept defeat, start again and do it properly. do the public participation properly, and act on what Judge Gamble has said in terms of issuing our quota, in terms of allowing us to use it. So on Tuesday this week, upcoming week, we're going to be sitting with the members of SUCO again, and we're going to be discussing this with the various legal teams on a way forward. The call for CITES proposals, this in itself is again another huge concern. And the reason why it's a concern for us is because they said in the application process that they will not look at any applications regarding elephant, rhino, lion, and leopard, because it's discussed in a high-level panel. That's unacceptable for us. That's not public participation. So we have to take action regarding this. We're still deciding what the best route will be. On Wednesday, we did, however, produce a submission, and it was based purely on the water book. So Dion Furstenberg, for the work that you did regarding that, thank you very much. And we put in our proposal that on Wednesday we're going to have to give a verbal proposal, and we're going to have to give a discussion. And it's going to be an interesting day to see what comes of it. Then what we've also gone and done is we've started prior applications. Now, prior applications is a request for information. We've handed 2 prior applications in so far, that's lion and rhino, and we're in the process of doing leopard and elephant. Because we're talking about these species, and we're talking about it on a high-level panel level, we're talking about it draft policy positions, our quotas are being stalled because of them, and we don't have the information, what's happening and transpiring behind the scenes. So that's why these applications are so important for us going forward. Some of you would have read the fantastic articles written about the overpopulation in Kruger with elephants. Dion, Garrett, your work that you've done there is phenomenal. Thank you for your research. And it's definitely something different. Now, if I may, maybe I'm overstepping a little bit, but the question was raised, Kruger is not WRSA's mandate. It's not our place, it's not the private game ranch. But the fact of the matter is, we are continuously getting pushed about how we do our business. It's time that we show how we do business is actually the better way of doing business, because your way is failing. Because not one national or provincial park is financially self-sustainable. So you want to force a model on us that will bankrupt us and bankrupt wildlife ranches, which is unacceptable. And that's why we've started challenging these kind of things. Sorry. I clicked on the wrong button here. Apparently it's the stage 2 load shedding starting. Okay, got it back, thank you. Okay, I think we skipped a slide there. The Animal Welfare Forum. For many of you that don't know, the Animal Welfare Forum was formed. That's another huge concern for us as wildlife ranching. How the Animal Welfare Forum was started is we have what we call the Wildlife Forum. The Humane Society wanted to join the Wildlife Forum, and we put our heels down as the SUCO representatives to say, you are not welcome because you are not pro-sustainable use. On the same day we had our Wildlife Forum meeting, the agenda item was removed. And we asked, where's the Humane Society's application? And they said, no, they've gone and formed an Animal Welfare Forum. We as the industry said, but for us as industry, animal welfare is my #1 priority. If my herd is not in top condition, if my animals are not looked after, if I don't look after them, they're not going to produce offspring for me, I'm not going to be viable. So we also want to be on this Animal Welfare Forum, and we were denied. And much like what happened with the Lion Colloquium, that's exactly what started with the Animal Welfare Forum. They're already talking about meetings in Parliament later this year that we'll need to go and attend to. We have also got legal advice on this, and we will be taking the right steps going forward. The ban on trophies in the UK, once again, working together makes us stronger. We've already spoken to parliamentarians from the UK regarding this. And despite what the news says, this is in its starting phase. All they've done is they've received news and information and feedback from the antis. They're yet to engage with the sustainable use sector. The Animal Improvement Act, Many of you guys know about the court case brought by SA Hunters and EWT, in my opinion, deliberately derailing what we're trying to achieve as game ranchers. This court application will now be heard on the 6th of June in Victoria High Court, and this will have interesting impacts for our wildlife ranchers. We had 3 advocates' opinions regarding this, because we as WRSA were listed as a respondent. The simple answer was, we as an industry are not involved in public participation. For us to get involved at the risk of losing based on public participation would be wasting our members' money. So, pending this outcome, we'll know where we're sitting. But how can we be denied the right of being under agriculture, but yet we get taxed based on difference? And that's what people don't understand. People don't understand all the networking and the connections between the different spheres. So the municipal tax rates, we started working on this quite heavily with Jager and Tabazimbi. We have been communicating in the past with the Eastern Cape, and we're trying to come up with a strategy. I think we've got quite a strong strategy that we'll be taking forward directly to the Minister of Agriculture, and hopefully laying it, putting it forward. We've created our legal fund because, as you guys can see, we've got a lot of challenges facing us. To all those sitting in the room today that have already contributed to the legal fund, I'd like to thank you. I promise you that we are using your money wisely, we're not wasting it, and we are making sure that we fight for our rights as wildlife ranchers. In terms of the non-detrimental findings, the scientific reports, we've had 2 in the last year, one being the Bontebok, and once again, I'm first of all for the wonderful work that you did. In that NDF, it's actually been written that over-regulation and ban and permitting can lead to the decrease of species, especially with the US Fish and Wildlife restriction on the import of trophies of Bontebok into the US. We're sitting with 182 trophies that cannot get into the US because of one province giving a management plan that wasn't supported by the rest of the industry, the rest of the country. In terms of they brought out an NDF for non-detrimental finding for trophy hunting, that too was a positive result, and I'd like to thank all those involved. Then we're sitting with a unique situation. The work and the research that we're doing on the ground with the Sustainable Economies Project is starting to pay dividends. We had the Kenyan Ministry visiting South Africa to come and see our model works. Jager and the members from Lumari, thank you very much for hosting us and fielding all those questions. But I'll never forget the time that we stopped at that sable hill, and that entire vehicle started shaking with excitement. I couldn't understand what it was. Yes, they're beautiful sable in front of us, but why this whole change in attitude? And the reason was, there were more sable in front of them at that current moment of time than they left in Kenya with 51 in Kenya. That one herd. Then the discussion point started to say, we spoke about the red list, to say in South Africa these animals are not recognized. And they said, but we'll take them to Kenya and then we'll put them on the red list. That's the irony there, is people don't understand our model and don't understand the contributions we make. The Game Meats Academy that's been formed with Crown National and Safari, also another fantastic achievement. Evan Visser is driving that initiative with Anki. Thank you very much. The work, the time, the effort you guys are putting in is phenomenal. Now we are having the Boerewors competition. I hear Evan's entered four different times. So please support everyone else. I don't want to take it first, second, and third, and fourth prize. Right, which now moves us on to our future. The Sweat project, fantastic results. We've discussed that in depth. Everyone that was involved in the Popo, thank you. We've seen the results from the Eastern Cape, that we provide double employment compared to any other form of livestock agriculture. Those are huge figures. Those are figures that are now starting to come through and show what we contribute. In terms of our marketing and communication, also Mapai, you're a fantastic director. I know you have got COVID and you can't be here, so I hope you're listening online. But thank you very much for all the work you've done. And Margareta doing the work behind the scenes in terms of the graphics, getting us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, many of you, we had that discussion about the horses and the calves. how we've evolved as industry, and how we've evolved with technology to now have things in the cloud. So we've now recently launched a new bot, so WhatsApp bot that communicates directly with our members, and you can get information. You can do your RSVP and you can do your booking. So we were speaking earlier about that cartoon that talks. We've gone and worked and put a lot of development in terms of Spiral, and we're putting together an entire communication campaign that we communicate on a different level, that we push and we educate people about what we're doing, and we're very excited about that. Alex Ulafusser from Namibia, thank you very much. I see you've just downloaded the bot. Appreciate you guys for being here. And Jager Creek, I'll say. Ek bly ek ken daarom jou naam, Jager. Okay, sorry, I clicked too quickly there. Then also we've gone and redeveloped our website. This is the new look and feel. Please, it's still on the same domain. You're welcome to go have a look. The work that Wildt, Richard, Margareta have put behind the scenes is phenomenal. I think it's a new look and feel, and it's a positive image for our industry. Here you can see who's involved and who our supporters are, and then who's supporting us as the industry with the auction last year. Thank you once again to all of these. Then lastly, our game. The outbreak of foot and mouth disease has definitely put an issue on a lot of what we're doing in the industry. It's restricted the movement and put a lot of new challenges forward. Here you can see how it's been expanded in the Limpopo and KwaZulu-Natal. Luckily, we're in a fortunate position at the moment that about 3 months ago, we already made the call to start looking at this type of development through our online system. So I'd like to call up Chris and Andre, if they can start coming up to the stage, please, to explain some of our online system and how it works. But in short, the Department of Veterinary has come to WRSA and said, we want you to come up with solutions on how to privatize the movement of buffalo. Something we could never have wished for 2-3 years ago has now come onto our doorstep. And it's given us a huge opportunity for development. So we're going to be running through a couple of the things that we've already put in place. So technology-wise, you can already register your farm. You can register your entity. You can select your property. You can allocate camps. You can allocate water pipelines. You can allocate breeding areas. You can allocate wildlife numbers. You can apply for the movement of warthog meat for your hunting clients. You can apply for your BU registration number, what used to be the old WR number for buffalo. And if anyone here sitting today has still got a WR number for buffalo, it's going to become invalid. You need to reapply for a BU number. So take the time while you're here, complete the form, fill it in. We have got the technological guys here, please guys, put on stage. And the entire teams at the back to support you later after the AGM. Then finally, we've brought in our tag system that we'll be discussing a little later on, which is complete traceability. So any questions, please remember the WhatsApp line, and then we'll field those things. All about the 8th of October. Okay. The 8th of October, we're going to be having our national auction and gala event in Pretoria. So please diarise that event.
To introduce our provincial chairs and rigs, if I can run through that list, please. From the Eastern Cape, provincial chair is John Herter. If I'd just like to mention that the Eastern Cape is the only province with a regional structure. They have their own dedicated addresses, website, Facebook, and Twitter accounts, so they seem to be leading the pack. Grahamstown Rigs Chair is Emmanuel Nell, Crawford Katiana Ott, Border John Herter, Zebas or Marais. The Free State, the provincial chair Johan Selfontein, Free State Rig Chair is Dr. Francois Niken, Gauteng provincial chair Willem Prinsloo, the Rig chairs are David Schwarmers and Dr. Paul Bartels. KwaZulu-Natal provincial chair Wim Landman, the Limpopo Rigs Phyllis Russ, Rig Chair Paul Boyens, Grabbuck Leon Tom, Wormspring Carl Paul, Tabazimbi Jenny Rousseau, assisted by Peter Dancelia, Chris Rand via Besaidnout, Messina Fred Petersen. Pumalanga Rick Laarveld, the chair there is Nicola. Cape Chair, Jager, who also doubles up as the RIG Chair. The Northwest, Provincial Chair Frankie Robert. The Landsburg, RIG Chair Evan Visser. Hartland Peter Ernst Jr. and Potchefstroom Leon Brieger. The Western Cape RIGs, Southern Cape Chair Nico Darren. Alright, that brings us to the question and answer session. As I said, we received quite a number of questions pertaining to the online platform. If I could get Richard up here for me.
Alright, so the first question that I read now, I'm actually kicking myself because I forgot to mention it in my speech. What do we do with all our excess game skins? What do we do with all our excess horns? Now, through this tag system, you'll see there that you've got the various tick boxes. So what we're looking at as a possible opportunity for wildlife ranchers is that game farmers or hunters that want to donate their excess skins and horns can do so to the WRSA Foundation. You'll then get an 18A tax certificate that you can use as a write-off. And then those skins will go to what we hope to develop as community centres that does development of leather goods, curios, that does skills in uplifting and does proper transformation. That's one of our objectives that we've got in the future for the next 3 years. And it's something that we're driving quite hard with our super partners. And if I can be honest, the person who had this visionary idea is Dr. Herman Else, and I support it fully. And I think it will be something that can definitely provide unique opportunities. For instance, that leather hat that we've got here that we'll be handing out when we do the draw, that's made from wildebeest skin from our farm. A product that's normally just left to rot. And even for our golf day that's taking place on the 28th of July, we're going to be handing out those safari hats. Safari hats that we sell for anything between 500 and 750 Rand a hat. So it's a fantastic, fantastic initiative for us going forward. If we can please have the rest of those questions. All right, the second question is, WRSA Law Fund. I think we made that quite clear in the presentation. Is there still any unclarity regarding that? Was everyone happy? The question, are you happy? Okay, thank you. When can we expect the results of Sweat and Popo project? I think for the Eastern Cape it took about 6 months for the final results. So we can possibly be looking at the same thing probably August, September, more or less going forward. We do know that Sweat wants to roll out through the rest of the country, and that also gives us another unique opportunity. Groen's events has been brought to our door. That's an initiative from the department in Sandy, where they want to position over 1,000 students to do research. WRSA is definitely going to be applying for some of these students, so the department pays all their monthly salary. We then need to provide them with board and lodging. And those type of students can help our members with EIA reports, soil analysis, those type of things on their property. So it's also another opportunities for us going forward that we're going to get involved in. How do we improve ownership of a title deed online? I think that would probably have to be done with a certificate, but we'll address that question going forward. What will happen is that we'll get 2 conflicting results should 2 people claim the same title deed. So if 2 people are claiming the same title deed, the system will notify us that there are 2 overlapping properties, and we'll notify both thereof and see what the results are. Will this farm management system come in the form of the app, or will it be working off the web? So that's the devil in the detail. Unfortunately, you always need both. So we are going to have to develop an app, and why are we going to have to develop an app is because you saw on those farm maps when you could plot the boundaries of your property. We've already been in discussions with Cape Nature that says they have not got the capacity to send out a representative to go do fence inspections all the time. So we made a proposal to them. We said it's very simple. You'll know exactly what the farm boundaries are. Plot 10 points and give the farmer 28 hours to take a photo of each point on his property. Within reason, of course. With a GPS connection on your phone, you go take the pictures, everything is GPS linked. There's your application for your certificate of adequate enclosure. So those are the opportunities that we have there. I'd like to know is the security, especially on TOTS animals. So TOTS animals, your data is your data. What we as WRSA will see, let's for instance take rhino, is I'll not be able to go in and say, oh fantastic, Mr. John, you've got so many rhino. What I will be able to see is that there's so many rhino in the waterbird, there's so many rhino in the popo, and there's so many rhino national. That's what we'll be able to see as WRSA. Remember, we are not interested in your personal business as individual. We are interested in the collective. I'm not going to be able to promote the industry by promoting one individual. I'm going to be able to promote the industry by promoting a collective of information. And that's what we are going to have access to as WRSA, is the collective data, not individual data. And then the question from last one here, the Popo Investment Conference, as to why permits are needed for hunting wildlife when no permit is needed for cattle, sheep, pigs, etc. Is WRSA aiming to get permits done away with for most wildlife, excluding endangered species? I think that must be one of our long-term goals. But you cannot go and say that we want to do self-regulation. That's out of our field as WRSA. What we can do is we can do self-administration. And what will happen once we can start proving what we can do with self-administration through our system will potentially open the doors for a lot of red tape and a lot of movement protocol going forward. I hope I've addressed all the questions. Are there any other questions? Any that came through? Or anyone from the floor that would like to raise a question?
Thanks, Richard. I just want to mention a few things, especially from the older people as well. This is a system that we run through quite quickly, and you hesitate and you look at this and you think, oh, maybe this is not what I foresee for myself, or maybe I will not tap into this. I think this is just the beginning of development that will happen in the next few years. I would really like to ask you, please, these young people, where's Chris? These young guys, you know, that knows actually what's going on, and to help you to get onto the system. Please feel free to go to the back and get onto the system. It's really important because for the next few reasons. And I just want you to listen to this. Usually what happened to wildlife ranching is we went to the minister and say, Minister, we want this and this and that. And then the minister will refer back to SANBI, South African National Biodiversity Institute, independent. And we keep on saying that to them. You're supposed to be, and you must be. And you are independent. Because you must give the scientific report back to the minister. So we decided that we must influence environmental affairs, science, and also SANBI. And then, if there's a question going back to the scientific authority, then it will be answered properly. But how do you do that? You only do that by getting people to your property. And that was with the SWEP project, Sustainable Wildlife Economy product, to show how we invest money in biodiversity, protect biodiversity, and also, in that sense, that's also part of that, it's your habitat. Because there were always people looked at us and say, oh, you know, you wildlife ranchers. So we said, well, you know, if we want to do certification, if we want to influence, if we want to show national, provincial and the world what we're doing, then that's the right way to do it. We must be able to show the research. Now, just the first project, the Eastern Cape, was worth 1.5 million rand. And then also now the STEP project for the Pope. That's the only way that we can quantify and qualify what we're doing. And that's the difficult part. That's the part that we don't always want to see or hear or do. Because now you must entertain people on your farm for 3 hours. And you must tell them certain things of your business. You must show them the erosion and this and that and how you improve your property. But unfortunately, that's the only way that we can improve ourselves. And also, by technology going forward, we will be able to prove biodiversity loss or gain of biodiversity that we've been doing so well for so many years. And then I just want to say another thing. Out of this, we realized that TOPS animals, there were only 4% of animals or properties in the Eastern Cape were TOPS animals. Farmers don't want TOPS animals. They don't want to ranch with TOPS animals. It's a headache for the hunter, it's a headache for the rancher. We don't want them. The system is basically dead. TOPS regulation in South Africa is dead. We're telling the department over and over and over again. It's not the way, and it's not the way that we can protect species, enhance species going forward. There must be a new system, there must be a new way that we can do that one. So just understand that the science behind this and the research behind this, first of all, we must be able to prove ourselves. Then we can go anywhere. We can go to court, we can quantify ourselves national and international. And by saying that, I want to say to you, there's people like Professor Adam Hart, Amy Dickman. Some of you will know these people. In the past, not really good things to say about wildlife ranching. But please go and have a look what they've got to say now, after the SLEP project that happened, and that they can see in the Eastern Cape. Now they start to make headways in the UK, France, Europe, to say, guys, look at this model. It was long overdue to get the information from the wildlife ranchers. And if we can't influence on the basis of research, and if we can't qualify and quantify what we're doing on that basis, then we've got a problem. And that is why it's so difficult for us sometimes to go to you and say, please, rancher, please help us, we need this. Because we need to take this forward. And we need to build the industry. And the only people that can help us is basically you. So if this is not good to look at this, maybe it will look like Star Wars. I know that. That is the first reaction that I had when they showed me this. I said, well, guys, slow down, slow down, slow down. But the young people, if you give this to the young people, you know it's like a game that they play. You must just see Dr. Tripp that Jager will still get onto the farm itself to go and look at the animals. They mustn't play with this the whole day. But gee whiz, guys, this is something that we must use. This is the new way of thinking. Within the next 2 years, I think we will sit here and there will be a lot of technology in the industry going forward. It will change a lot in the next 2 years. But we must be part of technology. We can't sit back and say, someone else must do it. All of us are part of this. And that's the only way that we will succeed going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Carl. Just before you disappear, and we're going to do this draw for the hats, can I ask all the people that are going to receive the long awards to please take your seats in the front of me here, just to facilitate time. So while we're doing this draw for you, the guys that we are going to be honoring, 20-year membership awards, if they please move to the front here.